a city where dreams are made, we now know fame can come at a price. Power and money can buy silence. Even a conviction for child abuse doesn't necessarily preclude you from the party.
I've heard many stories of kids going to an agent who can control their career and put them into auditions. And so the agent's spending time alone with the child. They're able to sort of, unfortunately, get them away from parental supervision. And then they take advantage of these kids. And it's more common, I think, than we can even imagine.
So as he said there, the agent controls their career and puts them into auditions. And one thing that's really important to understand that's going on now in Hollywood is that more and more horror films are including children, have a bigger child cast. So as you can see, there's 7 children here, and this is for the truly terrifying film, It, which is really demonic and evil and scary. And so when children are acting in these films, they have to really allow themselves to embrace the emotion of terror and fear, because that's what they've got to act out. They've got to act out mortal terror and absolute petrifying fear. And of course, in the process of acting this out, they're being faced with the characters, with the evil and very scary, terrifying-looking characters. They're acting opposite these characters, and some of them are really dark and really terrifying, like in this film, It. It's as scary as it could possibly be. And so the children are getting involved in something. When you get children involved in horror films, you're getting them involved in something dark, because horror films are the number one way that the occult is coming through Hollywood. The number one way that dark messages and really horrendous images and psychologically disturbing messages and scenarios that stay in people's minds. Hollywood horror films are the number one way this is occurring. And so when you put children, a lot of children as well, and if you put children into these films, you're getting them involved in something very dark, which children should not be involved in. I do not believe children should get involved in horror films at all. And here's another one. This is Annabelle, which was released last year. Annabelle Comes Home. And again, it's a horror film, and it's really, really terrifying, and it's meant to be terrifying. And again, it involves children. So these are 3, obviously some are younger than others, and they're all involved in this film, which is a truly disturbing psychological horror film. So again, you get children involved in this. It's basically a dark art, producing horror films, ones which are extremely terrifying, extremely psychologically disturbing. It's a dark art, and you're bringing in young girls like this and young boys, and they don't know what they're getting involved in. They don't know the whole process of acting out these terrifying storylines and the psychology behind it. So they're getting involved in some really dark things, and this is an agenda in Hollywood, specifically to bring young children into terrifying storylines. And this is another one. This is the cast of Stranger Things. Again, there's 6 of them, 6 children. They're aged 10 or 11 here at the beginning, near the beginning of the first series. And again, Stranger Things is extremely dark, extremely terrifying, and pretty horrific, very psychologically disturbing. So again, you've got a perfect example of the industry bringing in children, 6 children, into this very, very dark and disturbing and demonic storyline. As you can see, it's all about terrifying demons and darkness and evil and the underworld. And so the children have got to they get into the realm, they get into the character, they get into the storyline, they get into being faced with these horrific creatures, and they have to embrace this part of their emotion, this part of their psyche, which faces incredible terror and horror. And it's very, very, very detrimental for a child to do this.
If you'd asked me when I was 5 years old what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was I wanted to be famous.
Nathan Winters was 11 when he starred in his first film.
Some of the cast and crew came to my mom and said, you know, Nathan and Victor's interaction on set is not okay. There is something going on.
Director Victor Salva had been a friend of Nathan's mum since Nathan was 6. She made props for his movies.
The clowns, Randy, they're here.
Clown House, financed by Francis Ford Coppola, was his first feature film. And behind the scenes, something awful was happening.
Well, actually, it wasn't just behind the scenes that something awful was happening, because as well as being preyed upon by the director, Victor Salva, this boy again was involved in a horror film. Obviously, you saw that it was called Clown House, and it's basically a slasher film. So just like It and Annabelle and also Stranger Things, then this boy's first role, one of his first roles, was in a terrifying horror film to do with clowns. So you can see there's a theme running here. I'll just read out the plot. Clown House is a 1989 American slasher film written and directed by Victor Salva, starring Nathan Forrest Winters and then 2 other boys. Its plot concerns 3 young brothers who are stalked and pursued by 3 escaped mental patients disguised as clowns. So again, you can see that this young boy's agent got him a role in a truly terrifying film. And you've got to understand what this does to the psychology of a child. Well, in fact, it's hard to understand what this does to the psychology of a child unless you are that child. But again, it's almost like an initiation, and this is what I'm noticing about Hollywood and how it initiates children into a very dark world by getting them just to play characters in a fictional horror, a fictional terror, some psychologically disturbing program or film. It casts children in these roles, and it initiates them into a realm of evil, a realm of darkness, a realm of deeply disturbing scenarios and ideas. And so you might have also noticed that that Victor Salva, the director, went on to direct Jeepers Creepers after he was released from prison. And so Jeepers Creepers is another deeply disturbing horror film featuring kind of 2 late teenagers. But again, it's very brutal, very gruesome. And Victor Salva, who directed Clown House, directed that as well. So again, there's this pattern. There is certainly a pattern in Hollywood of directors who make horror films involving children. And the one most notable one I can think of at the moment is Guillermo del Toro. So he's made plenty of horror films. It's his speciality. And a lot of them involve children. And they're very dark and disturbing. But young children are playing roles in these films. And of course, like I say, the whole psychology and darkness and the initiation into this realm of portraying evil. Because one thing that's important to understand is when an actor portrays a deeply dark and evil role, when they really get into that character of evil, then it brings something in. They channel something quite dark. You might have heard of Heath Ledger playing the Joker in Batman, and then killing himself, I think, after the film, because actors channel energies, they channel spirits, they channel powerful forces when they act, and they invoke them. This is what acting is. You're invoking energies and invoking spirits. And so this is why it's so terrible that young children are getting pulled into horror films or getting cast as roles in horror films. But to go back to Guillermo del Toro, as I said, he's made a lot of horror films involving children. And he's also now producing children's programming, specifically for children, for Netflix. So he's produced 3 different programs. One is called Troll Hunters, one is called 3 Below, and the other one is called Wizards, I think. So he's a horror film director who likes using children in his horror films, and now he's producing programming specifically for children, which Netflix is advertising very much. If you log into Netflix and search for children's programs, then they recommend you watch his programs. So again, it's initiating children into something very, very dark, and this is something we really had to be aware of. And for the actors, for the young actors, whose agents are dragging them into these terrible, horrific films, then God help them, is all I can say, because it's an initiation into the real darkness of Hollywood, which goes very, very dark. So I'm just going to finish this video by showing you some of Guillermo del Toro's horror movies, and the fact that they involve children. This is Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, Come and Play. So again, this is a message. This is a message to kids, to kind of a calling to come and get them involved, to come and play with the darkness, play with evil, because that's what evil is. Evil is darkness, evil is fear, and it spreads those qualities. It spreads darkness and fear. So it's about evil, and getting children involved in these films is evil, and it's not accidental. It's a conscious act of evil to cast young children in horror films, in most psychologically disturbing films. To get kids involved in it is evil, and it's a practice in Hollywood. It's a conscious practice in Hollywood to initiate children into the realm of evil, darkness, and essentially Satanism. So Guillermo del Toro has made some very dark films, and this is The Orphanage. You have to understand that there's children acting in this, and this one, The Orphanage, is full of children. There's so many children in this film, and they're acting out some horrific and dark things. I mean, just in this image alone, there's a child under there. There's a child in this costume, and they have to put on these things and act out some very dark moods and very dark emotions. It's really evil. It's really evil to get children into doing this. And so the people who are consciously doing this, the directors who are consciously going out and getting children and putting them in these roles in order to psychologically disturb them and to kind of initiate them into a dark realm, which is also a perverted realm. It's not just about psychologically disturbing children. It's about perversion. It's about terrifying them and preparing them for other things, other experiences, which, again, is the very darkest side of Hollywood, and one you don't hear much about, but it's going on.